When you find senior leaders who are at high levels and high positions who just don't know what that thing looks like to be a mentor, and they just don't have the capacity to be a sponsor, it's because they never had one. They often, too, were the only one in the room, not creating the space, not having spaces created for them, grappling for scraps, and trying to get what they could. Welcome to Her Agency, the podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Rand. This is a space curated for Black women in advertising who are bold enough to pick up the pen, write the brief, take up space, and own their agency. Her Agency. Such a unique name to such a unique space. Agency is definitely a play on words. So for me, what agency means is being authentically you, owning your purpose, your power, your decisions, and your plans, not letting someone write your story, but drafting it yourself, and actually being the writer of my brief and how I want my career to strategically map out. There's a lot of meaning behind the name Her Agency. I've spent 17 years in an agency setting for my professional career. Sports marketing agency, social media agency, PR agency, general market, multicultural, you name it, I've been there. And I've had a very, in my mind, successful career. I've learned a lot, I've made a lot of connections, worked with a lot of dope brands, pioneered influencer campaigns, and really moved the needle for some impactful brands. During that time, though, I learned about agency as an action and really what it means to take control of your career, your narrative, your story, your brand, and the path you want to take to success. So when we talk about agency from a personal perspective, what that looks like and what that means for me is being the employee that's given it my all, 110%, but then confident enough to say, I'm going to log out now to go home and get my boys to sports practice, and then I'll log back on at 8 o'clock or 9:30 after they go to bed, if necessary. What that looks like for me is being the girl that learned how to take her PTO, schedule it. I need y'all to prepare the others. It means taking time in my middle of my day to block it out for lunch if there's the opportunity to, and creating a space for me to nourish my body, go outside and get some sunlight, touch some grass, or just reset and stop looking at a blue screen. It also looks like the ability to, take time off for personal leave if I had a sick family member, or just really advocate for myself to create boundaries. From a professional level, it looked like standing up for myself when I learned that I was being underpaid for the same amount of work, though I know, as Black girls, we go to work, we show up, and we show out. We truly sometimes do the most and get the least. It also looks like being the one to raise the hand to create a safe space to reinvigorate a BRG for Black employees, to create a space where they can feel valued, seen, build community and culture. It also looks like the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I'm ready for that promotion. Put me in, and to create a portfolio or a brief around why you're the best candidate for the new role. It looks like raising your hand to say, hey, if there's a pitch, I'm the girl that needs to be in front of the room, because I'm going to bring the stats, I'm going to bring the insights, but I'm also going to bring that sauce that you need to close out that book of business. That's what agency means on both the personal and the professional side, and that's what I'm creating is an opportunity for Black girls in advertising to lean into both sides of that coin, the professional and the personal side, and really write their brief and own their story. One of the reasons this was such a big deal for me is because I really was at an inflection point where I needed to stand up for myself in the personal space. I had to step away from my career. This was before I was fully in advertising, to take care of my father, who, that's my twin, and God rest his soul, but I had to take time off to take care of him with stage 4 brain cancer. And what that looks like is being the oldest child and the one that needs to come in clutch and be around so mom could keep working, so the insurance stays on, and so everything stays operational. That was just a call that I had to make, knowing on the flip side, my career is probably going to take a hit. There's going to be that career gap that freshman year that we sometimes see in our resumes, where we just had to take time and step away. But this was a moment where I was really proud to own my agency and make that decision, and know that the long game of making that decision was going to let me rest my head at night, bring joy and comfort to my mom, and do the best thing for myself personally and for my family. Advocating for myself at work. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but really it means having the hard conversations, pulling someone to the side when you feel like you or someone else has been slighted or some off-color comment was said. I recall one of the times early on in my career, there was this older white lady at the agency. I was new, I think about 2 months in, and I was just meeting her for the first time. Now, mind you, we were still friends. She got my kids the baby shower gift and all the things. But initially when we met, she said what I'm sure you've heard before. "You are so articulate." In my mind, I'm like, "Well, bitch, yeah." But I was like, yes, I am. And had to maintain my composure in a moment where I'm the new girl, I'm the youngest, I'm the only Black girl in the room. How do I react in this moment to a slight that, mind you, she's just the older white woman, and this is how they move. Y'all know what it is. But it was also a moment where the bias, whether conscious or unconscious, happened, and I was at the receiving end. I pulled her to the side later and we had a conversation. And I told her, once we built a rapport and we built a relationship, that made me very uncomfortable. It wasn't necessary. It felt like she wasn't expecting me to show up at the same level that the other colleagues were showing up as being new employees. She was taken aback, as they often are when they make off-color comments. But what I learned in that moment is that whether she meant to do that or she knew she was doing that or not, I felt good when I went home after having that conversation and advocating for myself and owning my agency. There's been other moments in my career that I can recall where I was called into a meeting about a social media post that I made. And it's funny, I heard this from the main stage at the Black Girl Digital Awards in 2024. Someone had a very similar experience. I made a post on social media, had nothing to do with the company, no names were dropped, no agencies were dropped, no clients were dropped. Just stating my experience and how it made me feel in the moment. Do y'all know the next day when I got to work, I was called into a meeting where my social media post was discussed. Now, y'all, I work in the space of social media and digital marketing. I know our company policy. Don't post anything disparaging. Don't post any trade secrets. You know the thing, which I followed the rules. However, for my manager at the time, yes, a white male, and it could have been a Black woman. But the point of the story is that my personal doings was brought into my personal professional environment. So I say that to say that's a story where I had to let my manager know nothing I said was disparaging to the company, could be regarded in a negative light. And I had to tell him to his face, you just felt a way about it. Mind you, this was just one of the 4 or 5 bumps in the road that caused me to eventually quit on the spot at this job. So I told y'all I've been in the game 17 years. I've seen a little bit, done a little bit. But that's another time when I was very proud of letting him know that he shouldn't be snooping and monitoring my personal social media space. It also let me know that that's the rules that they're playing by at this particular company. Maybe not holistically as an organization, but definitely him as my direct manager. It was another red flag. And then lastly, having the conversation on my way out of letting him know that that was one of the many reasons why I felt confident in my decision to remove myself from an environment that was never built for me to thrive was powerful, and I was making the right call. One other story I'll share with you, maybe you can and can't relate to, is going away and coming back and things change. Whether you've gone away for an extended vacation, extended maternity leave, which was my case, gone away from a personal leave just to get your mind right and to, have some personal care and some safe space. I've heard so many stories of Black women coming back to find their roles downsized, gone, changed. They're on a new team. They have a new remit. And oftentimes they didn't speak up for themselves. They just went with the flow. Because sometimes the opportunity doesn't present itself for us to, at that moment, own our agency. But what I want you to know is that is the moment where you own your agency. That's the moment where you ask the tough questions, have the hard conversation, and point out the fact that you are being treated unfairly. These are just a few of the stories that I've experienced in my career where I had to, not necessarily chalk it up to the game, but dig deep down to pull up all of the guts to have the conversation. And I don't regret not one word that was said or not one move that was made. And that's why I created this space, so we can have more conversations, so you can know that it's not just you. I've had conversations where I know it's not just me. And that's really what Her Agency Collective is for. Why we need goals and why we need to advocate for ourselves. You've heard the saying, if you don't write your story, someone else will. If you don't have goals, you'll just go with the flow and maybe end up in a career or in a role or at a company or at an agency that doesn't suit your professional needs. So what I want to have a conversation about right now is just the ability to write down the thing so that you can put it in action. If you don't have your goals written down, you really won't have a surefire path and a way to raise your hand for things that make sense as far as your career trajectory and pass on things that don't. You also won't know where you should apply for next if you find that your time is running out or you just don't feel safe in a space. And you won't have the connections because you didn't put the plan in place as far as building out your career trajectory. So when you start this year out, whether you're listening to this at the beginning of January when the Her Agency Collective opens up and this pod drops, or if you're listening to this in the middle of Q3, regardless of what time it is, there's always a season and a reason and a time to write down your goals and make them plain. Advocates, mentors, and sponsors. Let's talk about it. We often hear from the stage that we need to find one. Find a sponsor who can speak your name in rooms and make things shake for you. Find a mentor who can listen to you and give you advice on how to role play when you talk about asking for the raise. The advocate who can have your back, maybe when things kind of go left. The problem with hearing that we should have those things is actually finding somebody with the capability and the capacity to do it. I found myself in this situation a couple of times in my career where at this one conference, I went directly up to the lady on the stage that said you should have a mentor, a sponsor, or advocate, and talk to her about getting on her calendar, talking over coffee, and seeing what that looks like. Her response to me was that she didn't necessarily have time to do the thing. That's fair. Everybody doesn't have necessarily the time, but when my next question was met with another no, I was very disenfranchised. My next question to her was, okay, was there someone else at your level of success who is thriving as a sponsor or a mentor that you could connect me with? Red flag, y'all. This is a moment where I realized on these stages, sometimes people talk the talk and they can't walk the walk. And there's so many reasons why. If you look at historically, specifically as it pertains to Black people in the workplace, there's often only room for one. That's how it was in the old days. That's just how the generations before us was. You heard it, crabs in a barrel, right? We've experienced that. And so when you find senior leaders who are at high levels and high positions who just don't know what that thing looks like to be a mentor and they just don't have the capacity to be a sponsor, it's because they never had one. They often, too, were the only one in the room, not creating the space, not having spaces created for them, grappling for scraps, and trying to get what they could. So I say that to say don't get worried or frustrated or feel like you'll never find a mentor. There are plenty of people out here with mentors that are speaking their names in the room, kicking down the doors, blocking down the barriers, and creating a safer place for them to land in their career. So yes, you do need a sponsor. Yes, you do need an advocate. And yes, you do need a mentor. But no, don't get frustrated when you don't find the one that you've identified out the gate. Be okay with the silence. And what is the silence? The silence is the moment after you've advocated for yourself, the moment after you've called somebody on their bullshit, the moment after you left the job, the moment after you left the happy hour because you didn't feel like it was a safe space. Be okay with the silence of the next step. Yes, everything has a cause and effect, and everything won't shake out and be, rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes there's a negative reaction that comes with you owning your agency and taking up space and saying things with your chest and making what feels like at the moment tough decisions. But just know that joy comes in the morning. I know you've heard that before. And regardless of how you feel in the moment, if you have the heart, the conviction, and the agency to know, and what you said and what you advocated for is right, and speaking up for yourself or someone else that you're being an ally for, none of the rest matters. It removes you from toxic places that you don't need to be, toxic relationships that you don't need to be in, conversations that belittle you, and a myriad of other negative situations. So just know that you saying it with your chest, staying 10 toes down, saying the thing, yes, will come with silence and a moment of uncertainty, but on the other end, there's always light. Final thoughts. I want to remind you that your agency is not something that's given to you. It's something that you take. My intro says it's for girls who were bold enough to grab the pen and write the brief. What do I mean by write the brief? Write down your goals, make your plans, and do your thing. What does it mean to take up space? That means pulling up a seat at the table, saying how you feel in the moment. If you can't find the strength and the courage to say what you feel in the moment, say what you feel once the moment and the words have found you. But don't let moments and opportunities pass for you to advocate for yourself and own your agency. So with that, I'd like to propose a challenge. What can you do in the next 7 days to own your agency? When you find yourself in a situation that feels uncomfortable, say the thing. When you find yourself in an environment that doesn't feel right, remove yourself. When you find yourself being overworked and underpaid and you feel like you need to go and express yourself by finding and looking for other opportunities, do that. If you feel that your mentor is just not really giving what it needs to give, go find another one. If you find that your kids are like, Mom, you didn't pull up to the recital, the little thing, don't feel bad. Don't stay in a moment of despair. Just make a decision to own your agency the next time. Put that PTO in, log off at 5 o'clock if the event starts at 5:30, and take up space. Go out this week. Own your agency. Are you a Black girl in advertising? If so, we've created the most amazing space just for you. If you are ready to thrive and not just survive in this male-dominated space, if you want to lock arms, build community and culture with others that look like you, join her agency, The Collective, a place where we're having real conversations, doing the work, building our brands, taking up space, and owning our agency. See you there.